Hey everybody, it's the Nitty Professor with my usual menagerie of pets here in the waiting room, so to speak. But I have a question for all of you, and that is, what do you watch when you're knitting? Or do you even watch TV, or do you listen to music, or maybe you're outdoors listening to the birds? But I thought it'd be interesting to talk about what we enjoy watching, assuming you're like me and you're, quote, on the boob tube, watching something to relax to. For me, like, knitting in silence is, my brain would get a little bit shocked. I don't know. It wouldn't work out for me. I've got to have some kind of noise going on in the background. But I thought it might be fun to kind of share some of the stuff I've been watching lately with you, and to have a collective brainstorming. We could share some of the things that we enjoy watching. So I'll go down my list. So I often try to look for things that are going to put me in a good mood. Doesn't always work, but as a rule, after, a long day, especially with the politics going on nowadays, I do enjoy romances, but I've tried to branch out beyond those a little bit. I often end up going to Tubi. It's interesting. So Tubi is one of those free services where it's like Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. I think Tubi is kind of like that too. You never know what you're going to get, but they really often have a lot of good stuff on there. So I have a little list in front of me. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the series on Hallmark called The Way Home. Andy McDowell is in there and has also helped produce it. It's a really interesting time travel show that's it's set in Canada, but I think the Andy McDowell character is from North Carolina, so she's like this transplant, and her granddaughter and daughter are going back in time and trying to find her son. So if you're familiar with it, you probably know what I'm talking about. But it's just really well done, and they have this magic pond and stuff in there. And the acting is good. The beautiful Canadian scenery is nice. The music's good. The effects are good. The storylines are good. So I really do like The Way Home. I typically watch it. I have a Fubo account, so I watch it on there. I can watch it at any time. I just use the search function. But sometimes I'll try to find a good movie. So a lot of times I'll just use the search function on, say, Roku. Andy McDowell is one of my favorite actors, so I'm always looking for stuff by her. And the other day I rewatched Groundhog Day because guess what? It's early February, so why wouldn't you watch Groundhog Day? And introduced my son to the movie, and I think he kind of enjoyed it. It was it's one of her best films. I think she says that it's her favorite, which I can kind of tell why. It really is a good romance. Where's some other movies? I'm kind of a John Candy fan. Hey, y'all be good. So I did run across a movie. I forget if it was on Roku or Tubi or what, but it's called Nothing But Trouble. Have you ever heard that? It has Chevy Chase in there as well. And I thought, well, I like those actors, right? Dan Aykroyd is in it. And I thought, well, it's worth a try. I probably would never watch it again. It was just a really weird story, kind of like, you remember the old Andy Griffith or I Love Lucy, where they'd be driving through a town and the speed limit was 15 and they were going 50, and then they got in really big trouble and ended up in jail and stuff. So this was like that plot on steroids, where, hey, Dan Aykroyd, cut it out. Dan Aykroyd was playing this really creepy looking ancient judge in this town called Vulcanvania. I think that was it. Vulcanvania. I think it was just so many fun plays on words and stuff. And everything was just grotesque to the max. And all the punishments that they meted out to the unwitting city folks that came through the town. And John Candy was this sort of not necessarily very willing cop who was administering the law. I'd be curious if y'all are familiar with that movie or not. I wish John Candy would have been around longer because he really is fun to watch. One of our family's favorite movies is Uncle Buck. But let's see what else. Oh, here's one that I was watching over the winter, Dashing Through the Snow. It's based on a Debbie Maycomer or I don't know if you say macabre or how you pronounce that, but it's based on a novel by her. And I like it because it involves knitting, so that's kind of cool. This young woman had her identity stolen and is suspected of being this huge terrorist, and basically in the company of, and I think it's an FBI agent who's supposed to be, monitoring where she's going and looking for signs that she's doing some kind of terrorist handoff thing. And it turns out she's just this really sweet woman who had her identity stolen, and she likes puppies, and she's knitting all the time and crafting and going to craft fairs. And so that movie really makes me happy. I actually ended up buying it on Prime because I was like, I gotta have, just anytime access to this movie, and that way I can watch it commercial free. A really sort of compelling, thought-provoking movie that I watched is called Me Before You. To be honest, I can't remember who was starring in it, but you can look it up. It's called Me Before You. And it's about a young woman who is jobless and searching desperately for a place to work. And she ends up getting hired by this very wealthy family to look after a son who had a terrible accident and was a rich, spoiled, controlling, young, entitled person until he was literally hit by a car and rendered quadriplegic. And it was a really interesting romance because he was such a curmudgeon and so miserably unhappy, and she's trying to bring him out of his shell and convince him to embrace life. So I'm not going to give away the ending, but it's called Me Before You, and it was compelling. It's like more dramatic than something I would normally try to watch, but it was well worth watching. I might watch that one again. Another movie that's kind of fun you might run across, you probably know, it's called Death Becomes Her with Meryl Streep. And that's just a hilarious, in fact, it reminds me a little bit of the plot of the recent movie, now I gotta remember it, with Margaret Qualley, called The Substance. So this woman in Death Becomes Her is trying to preserve her youth and ends up in this situation where she can't possibly die no matter what horrible things happen to her. And Meryl Streep, they do all these special effects with her, like her head's turned around and just all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's a really fun dark comedy. Sometimes a dark comedy suits me because it's not just, some kind of fluffy, meaningless type of thing. It makes you think, and it's also more titillating, just like you dogs, you need to be titillated, right? And here's another really interesting Meryl Streep movie that I just ran across. It's called Before and After. And I'd never seen it. Again, I think this is one of the movies that I came across on Tubi. So it's a fairly well-to-do family in, I believe, Massachusetts. And the mother is a doctor and the father is an artist. And they have this, quite good life and everything with 2 children. Well, then the doctor mom is brought into an emergency room to, I guess, take in the death of a young woman. And since it's a kind of a small town, everybody knows everybody. And so she actually recognizes the young woman. Well, then a few days later, their son is all of a sudden a suspect. And everybody's like, how can this be? It's a privileged family and everybody's happy. And then the son runs away. And it turns out that, I'll just put it this way. So the son actually had something to do with the young woman's death. And so he's charged, partly because he runs away. And so you see this is the before and after, right? So before, everything was all cool, and then after, all of a sudden, he's accused of a horrible crime, and the entire town turns against this privileged, rich family and stuff like that, and the father takes it upon himself to do anything he can to make sure that his son, he's like 16, that he's exonerated, including discarding evidence that he finds. So it's a really interesting study of, what a parent, especially a particular father, but the parents being put in a position of having to defend their son from a crime that could destroy his entire future, which I'm sure they have a lot of big plans for him. And as a parent myself, it just, it really kind of raised some profound questions about what I would do in that situation and how horrible it would be. And Meryl Streep just acts the crap out of that. She just really does a fabulous job. All the acting is really good. There's some other well-known actors in there. I can't remember all their names. But in any case, it's called Before and After. And if you want a good drama, like a family drama that goes into the relationship of parents with their children, I recommend it. So, on rare occasion, I enjoy like a documentary. I did take in the Martha Stewart. I don't know if you all were interested in that or not. I was just really intrigued. One of the things I learned about Martha Stewart, so this was on Netflix, right? I learned that when she did finally ended up going to jail, that based on the way it was told, she did some pretty good things for the women that were in that prison. And it was intriguing to me that she... obviously she felt like she had been treated like she had been made an example of and stuff like that. It was really interesting take on the whole lead up to her ending up in jail over the insider trading. But they talked to a couple of the women who had been in the prison with her, and they had a lot of good things to say about Martha Stewart. That was, to me, one of the most interesting things about that documentary. I have to count my rows here because I can only do 12 white. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm on 9, so I have 3 rows to go. So in any case, the Martha Stewart documentary I thought was well worth watching. It reminds me of when there was a documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was a year or so ago. But I found that really interesting, too, to hear him talk about his own career in his own words, That was really interesting. Sometimes I watch Queer Eye. Queer Eye is kind of cool. Last time I watched it, and I was like, how come there are no women on here, I mean, can't they find one gay woman to put in with the Fab Five? That was the one thing that was on my mind the last time I watched that. As far as lighter fare, so my son lives here right now, and he's just trying to figure out his future, and it's stressful and all that stuff. So we've been watching a lot of really light programs, and I grew up with Bewitched. In fact, all of my kids have names that are somehow associated with the Bewitched show. So that's kind of cool. But we've been rewatching a lot of those episodes. And then one day we were prompted by Roku it's like, well, you watched Bewitched, so now you got to watch The Munsters. So I'm like, okay. And I just turned that on. And all of a sudden my son recalled how we had literally watched that when he was little. And we were having some vicissitudes with job insecurity and that kind of stuff, and it was one of those escapist type of things that we watched on a regular basis when my kids were like 4, and 8, and he remembered that. And so lately he's been watching almost nothing but The Munsters. Is really cute. That's most everything that's on my list. I'll be really curious what you if you want to share some things, like maybe you have some recommendations. I know a lot of people watch knitting podcasts and stuff like that. I watched a cat documentary recently. Obviously that would be something that would interest me. Hey, don't eat my needle. But here's something that when I have an opportunity, I regularly watch on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday, and that is NFL football. So I do knit a lot to football, and I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I'm probably going to knit my way through the Super Bowl, and then I'll be like, darn, football season's over. But you know what? So if you like football, the USFL is starting up their season at the end of March. Hey, Paris, move over, honey. Move over. Move. Look out. So USFL is like the spring football alternative. I think Dwayne Johnson is the owner of it. The Rock, right? Hey, they can't see me. Look out. So anyhow, if you're a football fan like I am, then you can take in the USFL starting at the end of March. You can look at their schedule, and they're going to go till the beginning of June. So it relieves me that I won't have to keep searching randomly on Tubi for movies. I will have a respite from, I'll have my decision will be made for me, because I'll be like, oh, Birmingham Stallions, I gotta watch that tonight. So in any case, if you're game, share if you take in some kind of film or TV fare when you're knitting, or maybe you listen to music or whatever. Be really curious, and Paris, of course, is dying to know, right? So thanks for listening and knitting with me for a little bit, and I'll see y'all soon. Ciao.